Our stellar panel who will be joining us on stage includes Manoj Raghavan, CEO and MD, Tata Elixir; Kushal Desai, CMD, APAR Industries; Sailesh C. Mehta, CMD, Deepak Fertilizers and Petrochemicals Corporation; and Patanjali G. Keswani, CMD, Lemon Tree Hotels. This session will be moderated by our managing editor at Business Today TV, Siddharth Sarabi. Can we have a huge round of applause, please?
Four leading lights of corporate India, four of those people who provide employment to Indian youth, four people who have dealt with multiple levels of taxation, who have also now been living under the GST regime, four people who have dealt with different consumer behaviors in Bharat and in India. Not that I intend to say that these are two separate entities, it's one, it's Bharat. And four of them here at the BT Best CEOs event. Thank you very much. What I want to do is try and keep it as rapid fire as possible, although we have a lot of time on this. And that word resilience, I'll start to the left of my panel. Pre-pandemic, did resilience ever figure in your lexicon? Was it ever discussed with your senior management? Did you even bother about resilience? Because Indians to paidaishi resilient log hote hain. So as a company that is answerable to shareholders and is supposed to delight customers, how significant has corporate India's strength been in a very, very volatile economic situation all across the world and in India?
Hello. So I have a friend here called Ravi, and we are very resilient, and I'll tell you why. Actually, all Indians should be resilient, because who eats rasgulla? Can I have a show of hands? Okay, all resilient. Because I learned a very interesting thing. You take a rasgulla and you squish it. If it comes back to shape, it is resilient. It's a fact. Resilience is getting back to shape after taking some form of hit. But if that's only if it's made of cow's milk. If it's made of buffalo milk, by the way, it is not resilient because it remains crushed. So I quite like this cow culture because it implies resilience. Anyway, the fact is that in our business, I think in many businesses in India, because of multiple other reasons besides something like COVID, survival is a function of being resilient, because you can be hit by so many different things. And in the hotel business, which is cyclical, it's a part of our risk management, but nothing like a 90% fall in income and, and 25% of your income being staff.
Absolutely, and those were times that have taught everyone a big lesson. I'll now come to the extreme right of my panel. India's effort to become resilient also means to become Atmanirbhar. And Atmanirbhar is not a new word in a way. We've been doing that for many, many decades in different ways. The public sector led one wave. We then had another wave come in, then foreign capital, and now we are seeing domestic capacity being created. As many global multinational corporations find doing business increasingly difficult, especially in the technology space in China, do you think it is now India's moment in terms of building up resilient Atmanirbhar capacities, especially in the fields that you operate in?
Yeah, I think the problems that the Western world is having with China is a sort of a great opportunity space for tech companies like us. Traditionally, a lot of the multinationals used to get a lot of work done from China, especially in the technology space. Both companies in the US as well as companies in Japan and so on used to do a lot of R&D activities, tech outsourcing and so on from China. I think with what is happening in the world, with the West sort of getting out of China, it's a great opportunity, not just in the tech outsourcing industry per se, but I would even assume in the manufacturing space, a lot of jobs and opportunities coming the India way. And I think for companies like us in the technology space, especially for certain markets, for example, like Japan, which used to have a huge dependency on China, we see that, that getting really pulled out, and they're looking for options outside. Of course, we have competition from the likes of Vietnam and, the Southeast Asian countries and so on. But the capacity that many of these countries have dwarfs, when compared to India. So that's a great opportunity for us, and I think companies like us definitely look forward to exploiting that opportunity.
Kushal, Manoj just spoke about the opportunity and other countries that can compete with us. 35 years ago, once the first wave of outsourcing started in a particular space, India had a natural advantage because of English-speaking skills. In today's world, in 2024, what are the natural advantages that we have to attract these sorts of companies and investment?
So I think one of the wonderful things that India offers is a very large domestic market. So, if you want to actually be a global player and you want to be, basically you need to be better, faster, cheaper, and now greener. And so by having a large domestic market, it helps you get scale. And you need that scale to actually be able to compete overseas. And what we are seeing, especially in our manufacturing business, is that the home market over here offers us that scale, to get through vertical integration and be able to get to the right cost position. When you have scale, you can also dramatically improve quality, because the systems that you're able to put in and the money that you're able to invest in terms of putting these things in place. I think the software industry led the way, but we are finding increasingly that in manufacturing we've been very successful doing the same thing.
Quick interjection: we offer scale, but do we offer the same kind of margins that global companies are used to in different markets?
So in fact, interestingly, we make more money exporting product into sophisticated or more premium markets for the same like-to-like product, because there is a greater value that is attached, especially because our manufacturing products run over long life, 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. The cost of ownership there is something that's very well understood and calculated relative to India. But the acceptance of Indian products over the last few years, many sourcing agencies, utilities, all these guys have been toying around with Indian products for the last 5-7 years. With this China move, actually they've taken it much more seriously, and now, we are able to export in a really big way.
Shailesh bhai, when it comes to fertilizers, the straight-up question, a huge economy, which agriculture economy, and an agriculture economy where there are fundamental issues that we keep seeing manifest every now and then. Can India be Atmanirbhar truly in this space? If not now, maybe 5-10 years down the line, and what is required to do that? Because without it, we will continue to have social unrest manifest.
So basically what we are looking at is, yes, indeed, India being so much agriculture dependent, it is a critical raw material, fertilizers. And India doesn't have the basic raw materials, meaning natural gas or even, phosphates or potash, any of these. But we have the huge market, and we have land which is, I think, something that, we are all blessed with. So from that perspective, I do feel that if there is a focus on somewhere looking at what will bring the increased productivity, and how do we look at, instead of bulk fertilizers, something which is crop specific, that is something that is going to give us, inroads. And how do we bring the agriculture productivity to global standards in terms of, per acre, as what our Prime Minister said, more crop per drop. And from that perspective, what we could be doing could be the challenge, and that's something.
Are our farmers willing to accept global standards? Are our farmers, in your experience, because you have great experience dealing with them at the absolute rural level, are they prepared for change? Are they prepared for reform and to accept all that big companies and technology has to offer?
So, see, this aspect I have seen that from an external perspective, one gets a feeling that, oh, the farmer is illiterate, the farmer is not knowledgeable, doesn't want to somewhere transform and change. We have found that to be totally wrong. what we see is that the farmer indeed is very, very risk averse. And if I were in the farmer's position, I would myself be quite risk averse, because look at the things that are at stake and the volatility the farmer looks at, weather, price, so on and so forth. But in our experience, what we have found is that if we are in a position to demonstrate, not by advertising, promotion, actual ground level demonstrate the difference, if we can convince him of the value, he will change and he will not ask for the price. For instance, in our case, in order to get across to them the more modern crop specific fertilizers, instead of just advertising promotion, we had 60,000 demo plots. 60,000 demo plots. He has his land here, there is a small demo plot. He does what he does on his land. In the demo plot, he does what we suggest. The only promise we had taken from him, please call 10 of your friends, show it to him. Dikhna chahiye. Once he sees it, he's changed. So we need to take in the pains to convince him about the value. He will change. Definitely he will change.
I'm coming to you again because, many years ago, your company in some ways introduced Indians to spots and locations which they didn't know about, because you went and set up fairly good, decent infrastructure there. What is the future of the hospitality industry in India? Post-pandemic, we have seen a boom. If you go to major towns, you will find it very difficult to get rooms in some of the better-known properties, and prices have also gone through the roof. The Prime Minister has called for example, WED in India, and the debate that was being had recently was, is there a place in Kashmir, for example, which can sustain a Ambani wedding? So what is the future of this sector?
So I think in the past, we had a traditional approach. We would look back and try and project what the future demand would be and then all you had to do was look at supply, because supply is known 5 years out. It takes time to build a hotel. But I think we are at a very different stage in our country today. So I keep getting asked. Yesterday when I was in Bombay, I met a bunch of mutual fund guys, and they kept saying, if you look back last 15 years, demand grew by this, supply grew by this, and so on. And they are not incorrect, because the hotel industry is like this oil industry. A 1% increase in demand and a 10% increase in price is what happens, because you cannot increase supply. But I think what we are missing in our country, and we have a foremost expert here, Mr. Amitabh Kant, which I'm sure he'll look at. The fact is that we are at a different point in the history of this country. Traditionally, we always used to talk, X% growth and so on and so forth. And it reminds me of what happened when Reagan was asked as a president, what do you think of Brazil? And he said, it's a country of great potential. It will always have great potential. That means it will never be realized. And a lot of foreign investors used to say that about India. But the most interesting thing is, India has finally reached a GDP per household, where typically in the last 10 economies that hit it, there was a series of J-shaped or hockey stick growth in discretionary items, which for a very large part of the population became non-discretionary. I'll give you a simple example. 25 years ago, how many people in this room, or their parents, if they were going from Bombay to Delhi, what would they go by? The default option was train, second class AC, and the luxury option, or the discretionary option, was flight. Today there are 500,000 Indians who are flying every day. What do you look at the CAGR of this? Look at the rate of growth of airline capacity. It's 1.5x in the next 5 years. Airports are growing from 150 to 250. 4-lane highways have tripled. The most interesting, and I don't know which of you track automobiles, in China in 2006, where India is today, 5% of the automobile sale was SUVs. In 5 years, 20% of 4x number of was SUVs. It grew 16 times. So actually, my daughter asked me the other day, when you look out, what are you muttering? I say, I'm counting SUVs. Okay, now here's the deal. At $7,000 per capita, which is $35,000 per household, in China, in Indonesia, and 34 years ago in Taiwan. Hotel, mid-market hotel and luxury hotel demand grew 6x in 5 years. And that only happened at $2,500 to $3,000 per capita. So to me, it's very simple. I think 3/4 of discretionary items in India for hundreds of millions of Indians will become, routine. And when that happens, it's balle actually for practically most of discretionary income. I'll give you one last number. Morgan Stanley, I just read this report. Today, 65% of personal consumption expenditure in India is staples, which food and shelter and that kind of, food and equivalents. And that's at GDP today. 5 years from now, that 65 becomes 35 because GDP doubles, or, in 7 years. But the growth of the non-discretionary, the non-fixed part is 4 times. So I think in every consumption industry in India, you are going to have an insane amount of domestic demand. And actually that's what I am betting on.
Okay, insane amount of domestic demand. Manoj, I want to take that point and focus on the EV sector because it's something that all of us focus about, and one of the latest things that we are picking up is that while the government makes up its mind about the support scheme, demand is far outstripping the projections that some of these manufacturers had. So how significant is the EV disruption that's playing out, and how do you see it establishing itself in the next 2-3 years?
Yeah, so I think a large portion of our business caters to the automotive industry. About 50% of our revenues come from the automotive industry, and that business is seeing rapid growth over the last 3 to 4 years. And automotive industry is sort of cyclical, but the last cycle, I think the last downturn was something around 2008, 2009 time frame. Ever since that, there have been various, whether it is the complete, electronics getting into the car, the autonomous car, and of late, EV has kept the industry going steady. And it's good. It's definitely, when I look at it, when I talk to all my customers, their primary focus is R&D on EV technologies. Everything else is sort of, put on the back burner, whether it is US, Europe, Japan, and even in India. Out of the overall budgets that go into R&D, a significant portion of it is diverted to EV. Of course, we also at the same time, in the last, I would say, quarter or so, keep reading about, hey, is this sustainable? We've, as I said, the automotive industry is also a little cyclical. So the last 3 months, a lot of data indicates that a lot of people are not happy with the overall EV market evolution also.
Yeah, that's what we are seeing overseas as well.
We're seeing overseas, yeah. You also look at it, when you talk about, customers, say in Germany and so on, when I travel and I speak to customers, right, we assume naturally that the EV vehicles will just pick up and, it'll keep increasing. But somebody who's used to driving ICE, petrol, diesel and so on, especially on an autobahn in Germany, for example, out there driving 250 miles one way is an hour, hour and a half. People drive every day one way 250 miles to go to their office and return back. And for them, that 500-mile journey is not, the quality of experience in an EV is not that great, because they have to keep worrying about, hey, can I reach my office?
Anxiety.
The range anxiety is real. Unlike for us, where, in our roads, you can never drive at 250 miles or you can never drive at those speeds. You drive maybe, 50 kilometers or, maximum 100 kilometers a day to office and back.
Yes.
You can never think of driving 250 miles or, 400 kilometers one way. So I think there is a lot of challenges, especially even in a developed world, for EVs really to pick up. And those are the challenges that that we really see, coming over.
Absolutely, and it's evolving. Kushal, you wanted to come in before did you want to add to this topic?
So, in terms of what we see in, as APAR, 90% of our products come from the electrical infrastructure, right from transmission through to the last mile. The heart of the whole thing is basically, as Mr. Puri mentioned on this GHGs, this greenhouse emissions, because what most people don't understand is that the emissions may be local, but the impact is global. So when emissions increasing in Mumbai or Delhi actually affects equally people sitting in Sydney, Sao Paulo or in Alaska.
Or you could say that when there are farm fires in Punjab and Haryana,
Actually,
Delhi NCR
that
gets
is the
smoked
fact.
out.
So, as a consequence of this, there is this huge energy transition that is taking place. And when you have, you've got today electricity is 20% of the entire energy mix. As you look out, if we have to maintain the current level of emissions, let alone improving the emissions, this energy transition, electricity has to go to 40% of the energy mix. And essentially the only way this can be achieved is that your source of energy generation has to be without emission and the end point consumption has to be without emission. So there is no doubt that everything has to move electric, whether it's EV cars, whether it's trains, buses, interstate, etc., etc.
Shaliji, I want to come to you and ask you a question, especially because Mr. Amitabh Kant, the G20 Sherpa, is here. We also have Sunil Mittal, somebody who started the telecom revolution. A round of applause for from the audience for them being here. And it is the capacity constraints that exist in India, which is a good thing, that even getting flying slots is now an issue at times. But Shaliji, I want to come to you. The big hand of the government in the fertilizer space, good thing or bad thing?
Everything has two sides. And from that perspective, if I might say from a historical perspective, that the agriculture productivity would have not come up but for the support of the government in terms of a policy imperative, where we looked at a way of subsidizing fertilizers to make sure that they are affordable for the farmers. But having said that, when we look at it today we do feel that the industry has matured very well and it needs to be freed up. It needs to be somewhere treated like a normal market-driven industry. And that is where we are as an industry pushing the government to look at direct benefit transfer to the farmers rather than something through the conduit of the fertilizer industry. So what that would do basically is, of course, it will bring the toughness of market-determined forces for the fertilizer sector, which has seen, I would say, government support for a long time, but we need to get to that state. And if that kind of policy shift happens, we will see a lot of innovation, a lot of transformation in terms of the whole approach to agriculture, which today we feel it's stratified. Last 30, 40 years, not much of innovation, because you know how it is, with the government policy, it gets stratified. So what was good earlier, now we need to grow out of it. That's what I feel.
I want to come back to you for a quick one. The government has been driving much of the massive infrastructure expansion, a lot of capital investment. There are certain industries, including telecom, for example, where the private sector continues to invest, and now there will be a new auction as well. But overall, do you see private sector investment now picking up on the road that the government has basically created over the last 8-10 years?
So we've seen actually at our, we've seen a definite increase in the capex cycle that's taking place. One of the parts of our business is an industrial oil business, where customers, they buy in small quantities, but it goes into various, industries applications, right from hydraulics to compressors, etc. So you can clearly see that there is a growth taking place, and the first fill that goes in for a lubricant is a direct correlation with new equipment getting added. So we have seen that cycle that's taking place, but the biggest portion that at least I have seen with our business is the amount of solar and wind energy that's actually being put in. And interestingly, most of that investment is coming through private investment. The government is actually just playing the role of a regulator. And that itself is a huge, expansion and capital boost that's happening.
So do you think it's a bit unfair that certain analysts say that the private sector is lagging behind? Not you, your company or your sector overall as far as investment is concerned.
So I think there was a lot of optimization of capital. One of the things that COVID taught all of us is that actually you can really extract more from less. But when we talk at least to a lot of our customers, they've started, their capacity utilizations have increased very dramatically.
Okay.
They're at 80-90% utilization. So a lot of capex is coming up, and my sense is that that cycle is actually definitely on.
Okay. Manoj, as we wind down the conversation, I'm tempted to ask this question because when Mr. Sunil Mittal is in the hall, I can't but observe the fact that he started the push button revolution in India. And now, 25-30 years later, we talk about the manufacture of semiconductors, and we have had massive announcements, and hopefully in a few years, we will see that sector also become strong. Did you imagine that this could be even possible 25 years ago or 30 years ago when you started your career?
Absolutely not, right? I do remember, approaching the semiconductor companies, both in Japan and the US 20 years ago. We used to do a lot of chip design ourselves. We have actually helped our customers in taping out silicon and so on. And, just looking at the amount of investment, the money needed to set up a fab, it was mind-blowing at that point in time. And, and now looking at the fact that, look, the government is also actively pushing and supporting the industry, and there are actually, companies coming forward with those massive investments. I think it's a fantastic, moment for the Indian industry. I think that's also because the sheer volume of chips that are used today in India, I mean, the amount of foreign exchange that goes out, because, I mean, it's more than the oil that we import, right? So that's the significance of this move. And,
And we'll see fruits of this effort possibly manifest in 3, 4, 5 years. Final question, and that comes to you. Will Wed in India actually succeed for the target audience for whom the Prime Minister made that announcement?
I think it's already succeeding, but I think more importantly it's demographics. We have a very young population. So what I look at is I try to calculate how many people get married every year. And since I just got remarried, I must tell you I'm part of the demographic. And I find that so encouraging with this change in income, the structural change, that I think it will boom in India. That's my view.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for what I call the makers and the builders of modern India. Sometimes private sector, corporate India gets a bad rap, but they're the ones who actually create the most number of jobs and good jobs for the youth of this country, and there can be nothing more important than that. Thank you very much to this entire panel for their time with us today. With that, it's a wrap on this session.
Next award is Best CEO Infrastructure and Capital Goods. And the winner, any guesses? Kushal Desai, CMD, APAR Industries. Kushal is a third-generation businessman steering the Mumbai-based APAR Industries, which manufactures cables, industrial lubricants, specialty oils and conductors. Under his deft guidance, the company has become the largest global aluminium and alloy conductors manufacturer and the third largest global manufacturer of transformer oils. A huge round of applause for Kushal Desai. Coming up, I'd like to request all the awardees to join us on stage for a group photograph, please. With the awards, of course, as Mr. Puri points out.